October 3, 1945, Elvis entered a talent contest in his hometown of Tupelo, Mississippi, at the annual Mississippi and Alabama Fair and Dairy Show. Elvis' fifth-grade teacher, Mrs. Oleta Grimes, entered Elvis into the fair's talent show after hearing him sing in the morning prayer program at school. Elvis stood on a chair at a microphone singing the song, Old Shep. Elvis won 5th place. The 5th place prize was a few dollars worth of ride tickets. Elvis would later recall that his mother, Gladys, gave him a spanking that day too, probably for riding the more dangerous rides and giving her a scare. Elvis was 10 years old. The talent show was broadcast over Wello Radio. Elvis Presley and Mary Magdalene Morgan. She was one of Elvis' childhood schoolmates and one of his first girlfriends while living in Tupelo. Mary shared, "We were always in Christmas plays together up at the church. He sang and picked the guitar. I sang and played piano. He was just my ideal guy. He was very pleasant, very polite."
But he was just my guy from day one. And I guess I was his gal, so it was nice.
December 25, 1947, Elvis gets his first bicycle. Elvis' father Vernon purchased the Shapla Special 1946 Columbia bicycle for Elvis at Tupelo Hardware. This bicycle was fully restored and on display at Graceland. September 13, 1948, Elvis enrolled at L.C. Humes High School in Memphis, Tennessee. He was here from 8th grade until senior. Vernon later recalled that Elvis looked very nervous. He walked his son to the new school on his first day. That year, Elvis was present 165 days, absent 15, and was never tardy. His grades were in language, B in physical education, spelling, and history, and C in arithmetic, music, and science. Elvis graduated from Humes High School on June 3, 1953. Graduating with Elvis was his friend George Klein, who was the class president. GK and Elvis remained friends until Elvis' death in 1977. Humes was originally open as a high school from the 1930s through 1967. In 2004, the school was listed on the National Register of Historic Places due to its connection to Elvis. Elvis in his ROTC uniform in 1953. Elvis posing in front of the kitchen and bathrooms windows of their apartment at Lauderdale Courts. In June 1953, Presley graduated from Humes High School in Memphis, Tennessee. After graduating, he worked odd jobs to save enough money to record a demo. And on July 18, 1953, Elvis first went to Sun Studio to record the first of 2 demo acetates, My Happiness, and That's When Your Heartaches Begin. He paid $3.98. Rare Elvis Presley photos high school years. In June 1953, Elvis graduated from Humes High School in Memphis, Tennessee. The building is now on the National Register of Historic Places because of Elvis. Elvis and his landlord, the NYC rabbi's wife, Jeanette Fruchter, Memphis circa 1953 to 1954. The Presley family's first-floor apartment at 462 Alabama Avenue in Memphis. The rent was $50. It's a two-story Victorian brick building on Alabama Avenue with a sweeping front porch, was home to the Presleys from April 1953 until late 1954. There were just 2 apartments in the house. The family paid $50 a month to rent a small apartment, payable to Mrs. Dubrovner, whose husband had been a kosher butcher in New York and who lived down the street herself. And both Mrs. Dubrovner and the Presleys' upstairs neighbors, New York Orthodox Rabbi Alfred Fruchter and his wife, Jeanette, showed a considerable amount of kindness and financial consideration toward the new tenants. The Presley moved here from Lauderdale Court. Vernon and Gladys occupied the only bedroom. Elvis' grandmother Minnie Mae slept on a cot in the dining room. Elvis Presley took the couch each night. Mrs. Fruchter later told an interviewer, they never had much. There wasn't even a decent chair to sit down in. About all they had was this cheap little radio. Mrs. Fruchter remembered Saturday afternoons when Elvis Presley and Vernon would polish Elvis' 10-year-old Lincoln. Others recalled seeing Elvis Presley walk down the street with his guitar, his hair spilling over the collar of his pink shirt. The Presley family was living here when Elvis made his first recording at Memphis Recording Service during the summer of 1953, and when he got the first call from Marion Kiesker phoning for Sam Phillips from Sun Records in 1954. The Presleys didn't have a phone, so Rabbi Fruchter took the call. Elvis and Friends. Photo taken at 462 Alabama Avenue, where the Presleys lived after Lauderdale Court. It's a 2-story Victorian brick building on Alabama Avenue with a sweeping front porch. The Presleys lived here from April 1953 until late 1954. Last photo was Elvis with neighbors. Elvis sits with young David and Debbie Fruchter. A Young Elvis, July 1954. In the summer of 1954, a young Elvis Presley was on the cusp of a revolution that would change the music world forever. This was the moment when a shy, unassuming teenager from Tupelo, Mississippi, transformed into the king of rock and roll. Scotty Moore, Elvis Presley, and Bill Black. September 9, 1954. In the parking lot at Lamar Airways Shopping Center for the Katz Drugstore opening in Memphis, Tennessee. They were hired to perform at the grand opening of the shopping center on September 9, 1954. They did so on a makeshift stage built on a flatbed truck in the center's expansive, unprecedentedly large parking lot. A young girl from Memphis, Opal Walker, at the time, who was at the show that night, and took 3 photos that have since been reprinted in countless books and articles. They are the only known photos of the appearance there, though none show the actual performance. Elvis Presley and Friends, James A. Lindsay, Herbie Hazard, Elvis, Jim Blaylock, Robert Marks, and William Harkins. September 8, 1955, Elvis performed at the City Civic Auditorium in Clarksdale, Mississippi. Elvis played 4 times here, from 1954 to 1955, and on January 12, 1955, March 10, 1955, and September 8, 1955. On August 5, 1955, Elvis was performing at the Overton Park Shell at Bob Neal's 8th Annual Country Music Jamboree. Also present was Cowboy Bill Strength, who Elvis admired and was happy to get his picture taken with. The Overton Park Shell in Memphis was also the location of Elvis's first live performance 1 year earlier on July 30, 1954. First picture: exhausted Elvis backstage after a show in May of 1956. Touring was always physically draining for Elvis Presley, even long before the obvious strain of touring in the 1970s. Elvis Presley and the Little Shamrock Cafe in Cleveland, Texas. On September 12, 1957, a black Cadillac rolls up to the Little Shamrock Cafe. In the car were musicians and a singer. They had just performed a concert in Houston, and they were now on their way north. They just needed to have a little breakfast first. Aline Landrum was at work this September morning. It was she who had the honor of Elvis Presley and the server's lineage of breakfast. Elvis ate eggs, bacon, cheese, coffee, pancakes, chocolate cake, and Pepsi Cola. And Aline has the photos to prove it. September 9, 1956, Elvis preparing for the Ed Sullivan Show, broadcast at CBS Studio 51 in Hollywood, California. September 17, 1954, Elvis performed in Bethel Springs, Tennessee, in the high school gymnasium. Multiple eyewitnesses attest to the facts, among them a young Carl Perkins who met Presley at the show. Elvis Presley's former teacher, Mildred Scrivener. Scrivener was Elvis' senior class homeroom teacher at Humes High School in Memphis. She was responsible for signing Elvis up for the Humes annual minstrel show, which took place on April 9, 1953. She was also a lieutenant colonel and the ROTC sponsor at Humes. Elvis graduated in 1953 from Humes High School. Elvis at the Sun and Sand Motel in Biloxi in 1956. Courtesy Stephen Schneider. His great-aunt owned the hotel. Elvis with Linda Bourgeois, and a young Fofo Gillick outside Elvis' buddy Etta Bellman's home in 1956.